叫李恒，我是湖北武汉人，从事审计方面的工作。目前呢，在我们就是手上救助的有大概170-180只狗，然后再加40多只猫。
哇，这里还有一只猫，跑这儿来了。
在武汉封城之前，那么我自己家里头大概有10几只、20只左右的狗。因为这些狗都是一些老弱病残，需要特殊照顾的，所以一直就跟我生活在一起。那么后来就突然就是这个疫情爆发，然后武汉这个城市就给封闭了嘛，很多狗都被这个他们的主人就抛弃了。
又是被丢的一个狗，乖乖乖乖。
然后还有一些是因为主人得了那个新冠，然后被送去隔离救治啊什么东西的，所以那些主人就把他们就丢在那个小区里面。那么后来就听到这样子消息以后，那么也不能不管他们嘛。你不管他们的话，因为在外面的话，他连食物都找不到。
可怜，你看这个抖啊，不停的抖。
当时就是硬着头皮，其实也挺担心，就是会因为这些狗啊带来病毒啊什么东西的。但是也没办法，因为在看到这些消息的时候，看到这些狗的一些无助的这种眼光的时候，就迫使我自己吧，就是不得不去救助他们。以前如果就是说只是救助个就是30-40只狗，那么我自己的收入足以应付他们的这所有费用，比如说吃的喝的，然后医疗费用，甚至包括他们一些出国费用。但是随着这些狗的数量的剧增因为特别是受这个疫情的影响，我们这些手全部都积压在手上，就没办法就像以前那样子的方式，每个月都送10几只、20只出去。那么这些狗养在手上，我突然一下就觉得压力很大。
眼睛还没好呀，狗乖。大爷了。
我们当时也跟他讲了，就是我们急需找到一个场地，那么安置这些就是救助的狗。他们也很支持，然后就说那你们就赶快去找地方，你知道吗？所以也是经过很多朋友在他们的帮忙之下吧，就在那个武汉的一个郊区，那找到了一个农家的一个场地。当时那个 SCPA 他们就给了很大的支持，他们当时就给了我们2万美金的捐款，然后就让我们用这笔钱去建设我们这个小院儿。
他命大，真是命大，要不然老早就饿死了。在那个店里头被关着，当时把它弄出来以后，就那么小的猫吃了满满的1碗的猫粮。
其实我从小是喜欢狗，喜欢这些动物，但是从来没有想过我会自己去收养这么多，完全所有的生活都被这些狗占据了。你像有些人，他可能出生的时候就是一个很贫穷的家庭，对吧？那很多东西都不是他选择去做得到的。那这些狗和猫其实是一样的，不是他选择去成为一只狗，成为一只猫，然后成为一个流浪动物，让别人去追着杀。我是想通过自己的一些努力吧，能够尽量的帮助这些狗，因为我觉得它们也是一条生命。
Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Xenia, one of the founding partners of Furry Angels Haven Wuhan, a nonprofit that was started back in late 2018 and whose shelter operations are located in Wuhan, the capital of the province of Hubei in China, now famous for being the epicenter of the COVID-19 global pandemic. This podcast will highlight the many challenges animal rescue organizations face in China, challenges that were made far worse when the coronavirus outbreak forced the entire country into lockdown at a time when many Chinese were away from their homes visiting family for the Lunar New Year holiday. So we will also discuss the many ways in which foreigners, like myself, can help the cause from overseas and hopefully inspire further supporters of this fantastic rescue team that is Xenia and Fita. Fita, unfortunately, she was supposed to be on the podcast with us today, but unexpected circumstances, she cannot be with us. But we welcome you on the show, Xenia. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting us, Jade, and thank you so much for your patience. I know that it has been a little difficult to set it up.
Yes, well, it's understandable because Fita is in Wuhan and she's dealing with, many things, and it's not easy to do rescue like that. And we're going to talk about how challenging it is. So it's always hard to predict, what's going to happen. But I thank you for your presence because you have a lot of experience. You've been living in Wuhan, China, for the last a little bit more than 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. So I was, about 2 years. I arrived in Wuhan
in 2018, eh?
Yes, and before Wuhan, I was actually in Taiwan.
Yes, I think you mentioned you were working for Mary's Doggies in Taiwan, which is a rescue organization similar to the one that you're heading today.
Yes, in fact, I actually was kind of more like a volunteer and helped them, sometimes with fundraising. They helped me with some of my rescues. It's a wonderful organization, and they have been a role model that we follow.
Wow.
Yes, Mary and Lisa. Mary is, Asian, and Lisa is actually from the UK. They are an amazing duo and inspire Fita and Xenia, to do what we are doing in Wuhan.
And how much time did you spend in Taiwan helping Mary's Doggies?
I spent in Taiwan. I spent 5 years.
Oh,
yeah. So it was a long time, and I was involved with Mary's Doggies for probably about, I would say, 3 of those years.
oh, wow! So a long time, and so you really got to learn the ropes of rescue from them.
Yeah, and they are an amazing organization. Everything that they do is so clean, honest, transparent. They do a lot of training for the animals. I mean, I cannot say good enough, enough things about how wonderful Mary Dog is.
And thanks to you, you might get me a referral because I would love to have them on the podcast. And we talked a little bit about that. So viewers at home can stay tuned for that. But before we get into the gist of our topic today, and we're going to talk about your rescue work in Wuhan and your experiences over there, I always like to have a little bit of a background note on our guests. So if you wouldn't mind telling viewers at home, like, where were you born and raised, and when did your passion for animals begin? Because someone who does rescue work like this, you have to have a passion for animals, right? So,
as you can detect my accent, I'm a native Spanish speaker. I was born and raised in Costa Rica.
Oh, wow. Beautiful country. I dream of going there. I've never been, but I would love to go. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful country. And, rescuing animals was something that came very easy and natural to me because I was born in a family who loved animals. So when I opened my eyes, we had dogs, cats, birds, mice, I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
I remember when I started rescuing animals, I was 8 years old, and it was with my grandfather. So that's how it started. My sister still rescues animals in Costa Rica, and it has been a family, kind of organization.
Yeah, a family affair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I met my husband in Costa Rica. He was a Peace Corps volunteer.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and I moved to the U.S. many years ago. I live in for about 14 years in South Florida, and I did some rescue there.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
Yeah, and Fort Lauderdale. It was pretty much independent rescue. Myself taking some cases, finding them homes, especially with pit bulls, because dog fighting is a big issue.
Yes, it is terrible. It's a big problem, and pit bulls have gotten a really bad rap, and unfortunately so, because it's really, in my opinion, and you can tell us your opinion, I don't feel it's the dog, the problem. It's often the people behind the dog. Often they are singled out for dog fighting rings or guard dogs, or just made to be aggressive. Like they're trained to be aggressive. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They go through horrible experiences, and I have to meet yet one aggressive pit bull.
There you
They may
go.
be fearful, they may be stressed because of their situation, but I have never been beaten
There you
by,
go.
by a pit bull. Never.
And you dealt with pit bulls that had been in bad situations, so it goes to show. And one of my guests actually highlighted the fact that pit bulls were actually very popular family dogs in the '60s or something. It was I don't know if you remember, there was a sitcom called Little Rascals. It was a very popular television show, and one of the main dogs in that show was a pit bull. And he was with children, and it was like the image of a pit bull back then, I guess, was much different. So
Yeah, they are very sweet dogs, and even when I remember my son was pretty young, we rescued a couple of puppies, pit bulls. And
oh,
those dogs were amazing. My son was at the time, I think, 9 years old, and he was
oh,
helping me raise the puppies. So, I mean,
there you go. So you did some rescue work in Costa Rica, and I think there's a big problem with stray dogs in Costa Rica. I mean, I saw a documentary. I forgot the name of the organization, but they have like a overwhelming amount of dogs on their property. It's very big property. Do you know what I'm talking about?
yes, I know the organization. I don't recall their name, but I think it's the same one who did something very interesting. Because in Costa Rica, like many other countries, having a pure breed dog is what people want. A zaguate, which is how we call the mutts, is not something that people used to, like, I'm going to adopt a dog that has no breed. So
Yeah.
this came with this great idea of, like, oh, but this dog is a schnauzer poodle, and they made these names,
Okay.
videos of the dogs, and, introducing people like almost like designer type of breed animals.
Wow.
And that campaign that they did was so popular. And at that point, I think in Costa Rica, from my understanding, people now are more open to adopt mutts.
Yeah.
And I think that campaign that they did was absolutely amazing, creative, and had a big impact.
To change the people's perception of of mutts, or dogs that are not pure breeds. So that's great.
Yeah.
And I have to ask you, what made you move to Taiwan, and when did that happen? Did you go from South Florida to Taiwan, or?
Actually, it was because of work reasons.
Yeah.
We have been moving. So before Taiwan, actually from Florida, we moved to Spain. So we live in Madrid for about 3 years, and I did rescue there. And I can tell you that it was really, really shocking to me because I was going to Europe, right? So you assume that the situation for the animals in Europe is as good or better than it is in the US.
And not so much, eh?
Not in Spain. It was a shock for me. The galgos, the polencos, bodegueros. I mean, all the hunting dogs are persecuted, and I hope things have changed because I was there from 2018 to 2000, I think 12 or 11, something like that.
Yeah.
And the adoptions rates were very, very low.
Oh.
So I had to send some of my rescues to Netherlands, to the UK, Germany, to And yeah, I mean, the galgos are, and I don't understand why those dogs are amazing.
It still happens today because we've seen it on Facebook. There are petitions left and right trying to stop this horrible practice. I mean, they're used for hunting, and then they're put, like basically thrown away like garbage.
And that is in the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Like you are driving and you see some dogs hang on trees. That's how they kill them as well.
Oh my God.
And it's just it's not only, I mean, it's there are certain breeds that are more persecuted than others, but as far as I remember, one of the main problems in Spain was that during the summer people go to vacation, and in Europe it's pretty common to go on vacation for a month.
Oh,
So
wow.
what do? They just dump the dogs on the highways.
I heard that, and I heard it from a colleague of mine, and she's Italian. And she grew up in Italy, and she told me that when she visits to this day, she goes to visit her family, it's very common practice that, they have a pet, but they don't have the same love affair with a family pet, like a dog's a dog. For whatever reason, when they go on vacation, they just dump the dog. They let him out on the streets and good luck, bye-bye. And like for me, it's inconceivable, a dog is part of the family, and should be honored.
And I will say something that it might be a little bit shocking, but the difference between Spain and China is that in Spain, people don't eat dogs and cats. That's
the only difference. Or do they not have animal welfare laws, though?
I'm sorry?
Spain does have animal welfare laws, though.
I think the European Union does. But one of the problems that I see in Spain in terms of animal welfare is that they have this conflict because of the bullfighting.
The bullfighting. Oh, yes.
That relates to all the animals.
That's like a tradition.
Yes, as long as they cannot move from those, and there are other traditions using animals that I don't know if they still do that, like, with goats. And sometimes it's not even only the bullfighting, which if I remember correctly, it was prohibited in Catalonia.
Oh, okay. At least one place that's safe for bulls.
That being said, they have another tradition that they put fire on the bull's horns. So, I mean,
there's also cockfighting, right? That's a popular thing. And is it in Spain or Portugal?
I don't think it's in Spain. In Spain, for example, people who are training, and the kids training to become bullfighters, they use the baby cows to practice.
Yeah, and they kill it, right? At the end, I mean, that's the whole goal, is to be able to master the bull.
Exactly. And when you have kids going to see bullfight from young age, they kind of become desensitized. So that, I think that is, in my humble opinion, a little bit of the cause that they still are behind in terms of animals' welfare. If you compare, even compare, I will say even Portugal has a better situation than Spain.
Because of that tradition with bullfighting, I guess. I mean, it makes people, like you said, they grow up seeing it. It becomes normalized violence and acceptable violence.
It's cultural.
Cultural.
So it's a very touchy topic, and it's something that you have to walk a fine line, because I'm pretty sure even this conversation that we are having, people may not like it,
No, they feel judged or, like prejudice against them. And it's similar fine line to walk in China, because we all know that China has no animal welfare laws, and we're going to talk about that later on. But it's interesting to see your history and what was it work still? And I guess, are you able to say what kind of work? And so from Spain, did you go to Taiwan, or did you have another country?
Yeah.
Okay. And for Wuhan, the change from Taiwan to Wuhan, it was work still that brought you to Wuhan? Okay, so you got there in 2018, and I'm curious because you travel so much, you speak probably fluent English. Do you speak French?
No, I don't speak French. Of course, Spanish is my native language.
Yeah.
I used to speak German. It's a little rusty, but and my Chinese, I will disappoint you, but it's like survival, just like
Well,
survive.
you're miles ahead of most of us. So, I mean, that is quite the challenge to learn a language like Mandarin. I don't think I'm up to the task, but
In Wuhan is needed because it's really difficult to find English speakers
yes,
and
yes.
so few foreigners that you need to have so at least some basic level so that you can, if you get lost in the city, at least you can find your way out.
Okay, so you know a little bit of the basics, but a lot of people in a lot of rescue organizations that are foreign, like Americans that work in China, they often use an app, a translation app, because, most of them cannot learn, Mandarin that quickly, although they can try, but it's a tough one. So, how did you meet up with Fita, and what made you start this foundation called Furry Angels Haven, Wuhan?
Yeah. When I moved from Taiwan to Wuhan, I knew China was going to be intense. And,
Yeah.
and every time I move to a different country, one of the first things I do is I try to meet who are the rescue organizations.
Okay, that's something that you seek out. Okay. Wow.
Where is my tribe? Where are the animal rescuers? Because
Wow.
I'm going to rescue animals, no matter where I am.
Okay. I love that about you.
To establish my network. So Wuhan was really challenging because nobody spoke English, nobody that I met. So I had a group of foreigners, university students, by the way, that were interested in helping animals in Wuhan. So we kind of did a little bit of a group visit to the biggest animal shelter in Wuhan. One of the students, I think, no, two of the students spoke Mandarin pretty well. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I need these people to go with me and, we can make it happen. So we went to this organization, huge shelter. They have about 700 animals.
Oh, wow.
About 700 dogs, I think, and cats maybe around 100 or something like that.
In Wuhan.
In
Wow.
Wuhan.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is this shelter still current? Okay.
Yes.
Can you name it?
The name is in Mandarin. I can send it to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you can send it to me, I can put it in the podcast.
Yes, they don't speak English.
Yeah.
And it was challenging. But during my visit, it was December, so it was really cold. We came with some blankets and some donations for the animals. And during my visit, I met Fita because Fita was volunteering at that organization.
Oh, wow.
And when I heard that she was speaking to me in English, I was like, wow.
Wow. Someone that can speak my language.
Yeah. And then we started, talking, and she told me, well, yes, I come and volunteer to this organization. They have many poor dogs. And I do my own rescues, but I have this problem. I find them families in Wuhan, but I'm getting returned 90% of the dogs that I already gave. So I have a small home. She told me I have a small home, in rural Wuhan, and there, I pay somebody to take care of the dogs. It's like a small shelter, but is getting,
unmanageable.
Exactly, because I'm rescuing animals, and then my own rescues that I gave into
I returned to her.
Yes, exactly. So, and I told her, look, I had a similar experience, not the same in Spain. So what I did was I started sending dogs overseas. And I learned from Mary's doggies because they do that as well. That they rehome a lot of the dogs, to the US, Canada, and Europe. So I kind of understood how the system worked, and I had some contacts from my time in Taiwan and also Spain. So I
Yeah.
let's do this. You handle everything in China, everything that is like, the vet care, because our vet doesn't speak English.
Right.
The logistics inside China, anything that has to do with the Chinese language, you do it. I will take care of the fundraising. I will take care of the international partners, finding homes, fly volunteers,
Wow.
everything that happens on the overseas side, I deal with. And then
That's very smart of you because you realize, okay, well, if the Chinese don't want the dogs, then other people will. And then your idea was to reach out and strategize with international partners. So that's brilliant. Yeah.
exactly. So, and we met late December 2018. By January the 6th, we were sending our first 6 dogs to California.
Ooh, that was quick. You were quick.
And nerve-wracking, because the first time you do everything by the book, but you always wonder,
Yeah.
what if? And it was a great experience. And from there, we in 2019 we used to send about 20 dogs every month
Oh,
to
wow.
the US, Canada, Amsterdam, France, and the UK. The UK is big for us.
Yeah, there's something called dog bus. I mean, is that like a shelter or what is it exactly?
Christine Adams is the founder of the Dog Boss.
Oh.
We adore her. She's absolutely amazing. She helps, with the dogs from Wuhan, China. She also helps dogs from Pakistan. Yeah.
Is she more on the transportation side? Like she orchestrates flights and that kind of thing, or does she actually have the dogs with her in a shelter?
Yeah. Let me explain. It's a little, she's the home package. So she takes dogs from us, from Wuhan. She takes dogs from Pakistan, and she also helps dogs in Romania, and she has a shelter in Romania.
Oh,
So
wow.
part of what she does, for example, I tell Christine, look, I have these candidates to go to the UK. I found this flight volunteer. This person will arrive to Amsterdam or to Paris this date with these animals. So she will accept my dogs. She will go to Amsterdam or Paris, pick up the dogs. She fosters the dogs or find fosters home, and then she handles the entire adoption process on the ground in the UK.
Wow.
So that's how we work. But I mean, she drives hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
just to pick up maybe 3 or 4 of my dogs.
She's committed. She's committed. She's been doing it for many years, or do you have an idea?
I don't know, to be honest with you, but I know that she has a shelter in Romania. So she's also traveling from the UK to Romania, to bring her rescues from there and find them homes there in the UK. She also does rescue animals in the UK.
Okay.
So it's another guest that I will suggest for you. If
I was thinking the same thing.
she's amazing.
Yeah, I had a guest on my podcast from the UK, Rushton Dog Rescue, and they also, similar to Dog Bus, they started rescuing dogs from Europe. Romania was a big country for them, and when they heard about the dog meat trade in China, they started really focusing their efforts in China. But yeah,
I also know Cindy McNeil and Zoe. In fact, they accepted one of my dogs. Her name is Lovey. She was a dog who was tortured in Wuhan, and she lost half of her face. So Cindy and Zoe reached out, and they told me we want to adopt Lovey, and Lovey is going to stay with us at the farm.
Yeah.
So, yes, I know them too.
They have a big heart, and actually, she told me, Cindy, she was like, she started out of her home, like, you know, like many of you, I guess, and she would have cats, like stray cats, galore, to the point that the daughters would lose their bedroom over the animals. It's really quite the pair, the mother and daughter duo. And she also mentioned that they will take a dog, and they never think, is this, do people want this dog? They don't care. They'll take the most traumatized dog. For them, it's like they need to rescue. Especially when you hear such heartbreaking stories. Yeah, their heart leaps and they're like, it doesn't matter. If no one adopts them, we'll keep them. You know, like that's their mentality.
It's kind of similar to us.
Yeah.
That's why the shelter, we don't discriminate. We don't go after specific breeds that we know. For example, we know
They're popular. Yeah.
any golden retriever that we rescue, we will have a lot of organizations in the US willing to pay even for their cargo flights. We know that.
Yeah.
What about those dogs that they don't have any breed
Yeah.
or are very traumatized, or are on the streets? Those dogs that nobody, because he doesn't have a sad story like the one who was rescued from the meat market. But that dog on the street will end up in a very bad situation if we don't do anything.
Well, they're going to end up in the dog meat industry. I mean, it won't take long.
And for us, we don't have, I know many rescuers have dogs in boarding places or fosters. We have more responsibility because we have a shelter. We have to pay to rent the land.
Yeah.
We have to pay the salary for the caretaker. We have to pay utilities. We have to make sure they have food. We have to make sure, that all the vet bills are covered. I mean, responsibility. We don't have a switch to put on and off. Like, okay, I'm going to stop taking animals because
No, yeah, it's ongoing. And while we're talking about their shelter, I believe in 2019, the SPCA International awarded you with a grant to build a new shelter in Wuhan. And so you were there in 2018. You made a lot of things happen. I mean, your first trip rescue out to California in January, a month later. And then in 2019, the SPCA International gives you this grant. And can you tell us, what does this shelter look like? And is it like big land? It's in the city though?
Actually, it was 2020 when they gave.
Oh, okay.
This is the backyard. You can see the fence. Hey, 乖乖. There is a dog. There. 乖乖. And the yard is very big. You can see the fence. We need to do some cleaning here. Haven't done yet because too busy. See, this is a yard for dogs, and that part is for cat. Eh呀，走了，哎，乖，走。And this is a swimming pool. We haven't filled water yet. Maybe later we will fill the water and then let them can be cool. And this part is the yard is for cat. Is for cat. Okay. But we need to do something, just prevent the cat can climb the fence and go outside. Haven't done yet. 走，乖。 靠墙，来过来，你靠墙了，他们都吃不到。乖。中间放。来，过来。往里面放一点。好，走，在里面。哎，走，快！放一点，贵点。屋里放吧。
What especially Fita did, because I was at the beginning of the lockdown, but for work reasons, I had to evacuate. Fita stayed behind and she kept rescuing. Because of that, BBC and Time Magazine featured us, and that gave us, before nobody knew about Furry Angels Haven.
Is it Time Magazine? Time Magazine?
Time Magazine.
Oh, wow. Once you're in Time, you're big.
and BBC. And it was because, Fita kept rescuing animals during that time. So before, I had a Facebook page, was not very popular. Nobody even knew where Wuhan was. Even my own family, they kept asking, where are you living? Did you say,
Oh my God. It was a little bit obscure at the time.
Yes, very obscure. I think even my daughter, she was like, Mom, which city is it? Which country? Like,
what do you do, Mom?
So, and I think it was because of the Time Magazine article that SPCA International found about us. And that organization is absolutely amazing. They were the only ones who reached out during the crisis, and reach out to see how can they help.
Wow. God bless their hearts.
Oh, totally. SPCA International is an organization that our partnership is deeper than just a grant.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I agree.
They coach us, they mentor us. I know if I have questions, I can go to them, and that relationship is amazing. And Lori and Meredith, who are, our contacts there, they are amazing people. They are amazing human beings. And I know that they also help dogs in war zones. So another suggestion.
Wow. Oh my God, you've got so many guests for me. So I don't need to ask you the last question.
Because what about the dogs who are in Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah. It's horrible, yeah. There's so much suffering in the world. There's not enough people that know. Often they're not even aware. And that brings me to one of my questions I was going to ask you at the beginning, but when did you hear about the dog-cat meat trade? Like, did you know about it when you were in Taiwan, or?
Way before. I knew that when I was rescuing animals in Costa Rica. And I actually learned not because of China. My first learning about it was because of the Koreans, market in Korea. And I couldn't believe it because I think there were some cases in Costa Rica of some Koreans who were killing homeless dogs to eat them.
Yeah.
And that's how the whole thing, I was pretty young when that happened. And it was
wow.
And then I started, in the 90s or late 90s using Google to find out more about it.
Yeah.
Not Google, sorry. At that time was Alta Vista.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you heard about it way before anyone, and Cindy as well, she heard about it a long time ago in the 90s. And me, I heard about it in 2018.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'm very late on the scene, but unfortunately, I heard about it through Yulin Dog Meat Festival because that really caused a global outrage, and it was highly mediatized festival. I mean, that's when we saw all these images on the internet and all that. So yeah, that caught my eye. Yeah.
And going a little bit back to the question about the shelter, so
Yeah.
SPCA International learned and talked to us about what we did and we're doing in Wuhan. And when I came to the US, I met with them in person.
Oh, wow.
And we have some calls with Fita, and she was explaining. She went show how many dogs she had at her home at the time. So it was very tense, and they were very moved by the fact that even under pretty much total isolation from the world,
Yeah.
Fita kept going on and rescuing animals.
Can I stop you right there? Because I do want to read an excerpt from an article. It was printed in November of 2020. It's Wonder Dog article. And basically, it gives you a very good idea of what Fita was going through. Wuhan was ground zero of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the news that came out of the lockdown Chinese city was grim. The city was locked down by Chinese authorities like a fortress. When a misguided news report implied that cats and dogs could spread the virus, some residents abandoned their pets, still with their luxurious collars and tags attached. A few pets were even thrown out of the windows of high-rise blocks, and I remember seeing that on Facebook. It was like horrifying. The pets were found in homes with no food and water. Their owners left their houses for the Chinese New Year, not expecting that they would not be able to return home. The pets were beginning to starve to death and die from thirst. And at that time, Fita, in that article, they talk about what she went through. She was caught in this nightmare. At the height of the pandemic, she was confined to her apartment with 63 dogs and 50 cats and couldn't even take them out for a walk because it was locked down. I don't know how she survived that. I mean, that is crazy. I guess you would have some insight to share on that,
Yeah, and not only that, we had the shelter in rural Wuhan. At that time, I think we had about 100 dogs. So, how to send food to those dogs, and it was really, really challenging. But I mean, we never gave up, and especially Fita, because for me, I was really feeling helpless from the US, but she was there,
living through it, yeah.
Exactly. So I have some respect for what she does, and who she is. And there's a big difference between her and me. I was born in a family who loves animals. Her family doesn't like animals.
That was one of my questions, because in a country like China with no animal welfare laws, and not just that, it's the fact that China pet ownership is really fairly recent. One of my previous guests, Jill Robinson, mentioned it's about 10, 12 years only that you can legally have a pet. And even then, in urban areas, it's very, very restrictive. Apparently, you cannot own a dog breed that is taller than 35 centimeters at the shoulder level. I mean, I don't know what you have to say about that.
That depends on the city. I think for Beijing it's 35 centimeters.
Okay.
For Wuhan is 45 centimeters.
Oh, okay.
It's a big but. There's a big difference. Beijing, yes, there's a big difference. For example, in Beijing, yes, the regulations is 35 centimeters shoulder height, but they are not enforced. In Wuhan, it's 45 centimeters, but those regulations are absolutely enforced, meaning that even if I have, let's say I have a German Shepherd and my neighbor called the police and complained, that dog will be taken out and will be killed because that dog is illegal, so cannot be registered. So there's a big problem. Why? I mean, if they don't want those type of dogs, in their city, then they should also stop the dog breeders.
Yeah.
That is not illegal.
Oh my God. They have dog breeders.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Because the pet industry is a booming one. Yeah, the pet industry is taking a lot of amplitude in China. I mean, I think I read an article that said in 2020 alone, it was going to represent about $30 billion industry. And so I guess dog breeders are there just to make money,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. And the problem is that, I mean, Wuhan is probably the city that is more harsh in terms of making sure those dogs are either killed or removed.
Or confiscated, they have no tolerance. Yeah.
Yeah, but if a police confiscate the dog, that dog is going to be killed. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it's not like, oh, we're gonna try to find it a home. like,
The other thing is, in some cities there are rescuers they do like what they call the 11th hour type of rescue animals. They go to police stations and they talk to the police and they can take some of their dogs out. In Wuhan, that doesn't happen.
So that's kind of the hardest. Is it one of the harshest cities?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hard line city for that.
And also, let's not forget the fact that Fita, with all those dogs in her apartment, if one neighbor complains, the authorities are at her doorstep and they seize all those dogs and they are killed. Cats as well.
No, cats, no. Cats
No?
is different. There's no restriction in cats. You can have as many cats. You don't have to register the cats. So they are lenient with cats.
Thank God. But is it like one dog per household only? That's the limit?
Yeah, exactly.
And so to date, I guess Fita's been doing this for quite a few years at this point, like even before you started Furry Angels. And she never had a problem, or she might have had some problems. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to talk about it too much, but people get the picture. It's very challenging. It's putting your life at risk in many ways.
Yeah, and I can say this about Wuhan. Imagine Beijing being like Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Shanghai is like New York.
Yeah.
Guangzhou is probably like Los Angeles. Wuhan is the Midwest, the equivalent of the Midwest.
The rednecks.
The Chinese version.
Oh, even worse, maybe. I don't know if it's worse, but yeah.
It is real China. And that is something that not a lot of people understand.
Yeah.
Like the northeast of China is a little, I would not say it's easy. It's never easy to rescue animals in China.
No.
But other cities like Kunming or, Wuhan or Changsha, like the second, third, and third tier cities, and even the fourth tier cities, are even more challenging.
Well, at Changsha, I had an interview with Suki Su. She's basically the director of Animal Hope and Wellness China Shelter, and she's born and raised in Changsha, and that's where the shelter is located. And it's central China. It's like really at the center. And she had never heard about the dog cat meat trade. She never heard about Yulin Dog Meat Festival until she moved to England and saw it on BBC documentary. She had never heard about it before then. And so it gave me the impression that it's maybe not as rampant, dog meat trade. But I'd love to hear from you. And do you know Fita, when she heard about it?
Oh, always. Since, I wish she was here, but she was raised and she knew about it.
And she saw it from early on.
In Wuhan, everybody knows that, unless you live under a rock.
Yeah, that's right.
Even the foreigners, everybody knows that. There are markets that they sell dogs for that.
In public, and they're often like little kiosk, markets, and they serve dog meat. Yeah.
It's less. Wuhan is a huge city. It's a mega city.
Yeah.
If you are in certain areas of the city, you will not see it unless you look for it.
Okay.
But dog meat restaurants, you will see it everywhere. everywhere. But like, that certain areas, you can go and buy a dog or a cat or any other animal that you can think for meat.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's accepted, it's socially acceptable, and it's not just Wuhan, but it's a little bit everywhere.
in Wuhan is really, really prevalent.
It's prevalent. Yeah,
yeah, and what happens in Yulin happens in Wuhan every day. That way. And this is and I will say something that might not be very popular. I personally don't like to eat animals, but
yeah.
I will understand if somebody comes and say, hey, you guys in the Western world eat cows and pigs, so we eat dogs and cats. And my answer is, I could maybe stomach that if the animal were going to be killed in a humane way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I totally agree. And often that's been one of the arguments I have, because I live in Montreal and we have a very large vegan community of activists. And I came out in 2018. I was never an activist. And when I discovered Yulin Dog Meat Festival, it really opened my eyes to animal cruelty, period. There's animal cruelty in every facet in every country. But the dog meat trade, what really tugged at my heartstrings is that, it's the way they are slaughtered. It's brutal. And it's brutal, the whole thing. I mean, from the transportation of them being stuffed in cages, breaking their limbs, days on end in the beating heat, no water, no food. It's very brutal. And I always say to them, they're like, well, why are you fighting this? Like, why are you so adamant about ending the dog meat trade when we torture and kill cows and pigs and chickens here? And I say, well, they also eat cows, pigs, and chickens in China. Let's not pretend they're substituting dogs for cows. They eat all of it. Anything. But, I think, if there's one category of animals that we can remove from slaughter in this day and age, in my lifetime, it's certainly dogs and cats, because they are considered companion animals in most of the world. And I agree with you that, it's the way they are killed. It's so brutal. It's the beating and
one of my arguments as well with the vegan community, is that because I have received some messages sometimes like, hey, why are you just saying about dogs and cats, and what about these other animals? And my answer is, yes, those other animals matter too. But remember, China is behind.
Yes.
We can fight about cats, cows and pigs and chickens, because we already left that stage that, cats and dogs were food. I don't remember having that issue in my country, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It might have happened. I have no idea. But I think the way it works is that they are way behind. So we have to start fighting.
Yes, exactly. We're not going to start going, okay, you can eat the dogs and torture them, but the cows, come on, guys. We're not going to have a vegan China overnight. And if we want a vegan China and a vegan world, we have to start somewhere. And this is the first step. It's the first logical step. Absolutely.
And I don't want to shame China at all, because at the end, I have a lot of respect for the Chinese rescuers. Mm-hmm. They are at the front end. They are, they are fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
And it's not about, shaming a culture of anything like that, because we also have our flaws. But it's kind of like, maybe my point of view is, can we all embrace humanity?
Yes.
And it has nothing. My own country, I can tell you a lot of things that I criticize, and to me, it's like, why Costa Rica cannot have the same animal welfare that Canada or Northern Europe has? Why, what do we need to do to bring people to that level? Yeah. Education is key, and working with the locals, because we as a foreigners cannot go and impose ourselves. We have to listen to them and work with them. And that is one critique that criticism that I have about some foreigner rescuers, that they think they know better than the locals, and we never do.
Ah, yes. You have to work with the locals because the change is going to have to happen from within.
Exactly.
And there's a growing trend. I mean, the younger generation certainly has a different view of dogs and cats and animals. I mean, they're starting to understand that animals are sentient beings. They're entitled to respect and certainly to live a life free of pain. But you're absolutely right. The idea is not to shame China. It's not just China, it's South Korea, it's many countries. I mean, parts of Africa. And for one thing, I would say, I would have no problems with anyone shaming Canada, where I'm from. If we have some shameful practices. We have the season seal hunting. I mean, this is shameful. I mean, we export seals and it's brutal. It's a horrific trade. We have dog sled businesses here, dog sled racing happening. I'm ashamed of that. Like, why is not Canada standing up for what's decent and right? Of course, I have problems with that. So it's not about shaming a country. It's about shaming a practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just to try to be, as a human race, more compassionate.
Yes.
And embrace it, not only to humans, but to all living beings.
Yes, I mean, it would be such a better world. And it's so simple. It just starts with like compassion for yourself, compassion for others, for all life, We all have that right. It's a basic fundamental right. So I'm right with you there. So we touched upon it a little bit, but I would love for you to expand and elaborate on the fact that a lot of the reasons why foreigners were so outraged seeing those images of Yulin Dog Meat Festival, and they made it kind of a entertainment sport of torturing these dogs, and it happened. But then I spoke to Dr. Peter J. Lee and I asked him, like, is this rampant? Like, is the torture before slaughter a common practice? And he was of the mindset that it is not as common as we are led to believe. It's more a question that those festivals goers or the traders that would torture those dogs in those videos and pictures, it was more like a rebellion because the world was shaming them and saying, oh, you eat dogs and cats, this is horrible. And they were saying, oh, see, you don't like it, we do it because it's our, traditional or cultural right. It was more like defiant. And so they would make a point of being even more brutal. I would love to hear from you because you've lived there and you've seen things with your own eyes. Like, is this a common thing that they feel like the more suffering the dog endures before death, the more beneficial the meat will be, the better tasting it will be?
Yeah, one thing that I want to emphasize is I cannot speak for China because I only live in Wuhan. And that's the only part that I can say what I saw. And yes, in Wuhan, most people have the belief that the more the animals suffer, the more delicious the meat is going to be, the more tender. And that's why they do it. There are degrees, there are people who are really mean and cruel and enjoy it. Yeah. Others who may not really, they do it because they believe the meat will be more tender.
But isn't it the opposite? I mean, we kind of know that when an animal dies in fear and stress, the meat will become more tough, so it's kind of defeating the purpose.
But at that point, I do agree that petitions is something that we don't encourage. And why? Because petitions is Westerners or foreigners shaming China. Sending them like, you, China, have to do this because we say so. Yeah. So petitions at best do nothing, at worst can cause rebellion.
Yeah, so that's what he said. It was that petition. I think at one point there was a petition that had 11 million signatures, all mostly from foreigners. And if anything, it's like, who are you to tell us how we should live. I mean, we don't come and meddle in your affairs. So it has that reaction, like, defiant reaction. So it's not so helpful. Yeah.
No, the change petitions, at best we absolutely do nothing. At worst, you can make the situation even worse.
Yeah.
So I think organizations who start petitions, they don't understand how things work in China. And it's also about losing face. The rest of the world is telling China what to do.
Yeah.
And to some extent, going back to how change is going to come from within.
Yeah, absolutely. Petitions signed by Chinese would be very different, but then again, it's a communist regime, and I don't think they would be, willing to really put on paper their name and say,
And maybe there's a reason why they don't do it, because maybe they know it's not going to work.
it's not the way to go about it. And I would love to hear your ideas on, first of all, in your opinion, you have a lot of experience with animal rescue and China and the dog cat meat trade. In your opinion, will we ever see the end of it?
No, I'm not hopeful. And maybe I'm more grim because where I lived. I think people who have been in bigger cities where it might is going away a little bit, like Shanghai or Beijing, the bigger names.
Yeah.
But in Wuhan it's not illegal. It's embraced. So it's also not easy to go and say, hey, let's stop this truck with dogs who are going to be slaughtered. I mean,
Yeah.
no one will pay attention to you or do anything about it. So it's the situation there is deeper. I think I do believe, for example, in programs that you can show people with facts how animals can improve your life, and give presentations about, okay, if you are thinking to adopt or buy a dog, this is what you should expect, this is what you have.
Yes.
And those presentations, to be honest with you, have to be done by locals, because if I go and teach, it's like,
Who are you? Yeah. Who are you? Yes, I agree. And I think there are good programs already in place. I mean, maybe not in the whole of China, maybe more in Beijing and big centers like that. But like Duo Project, I think they just created their first animal welfare center. I mean, recently I heard in the news, and they also have Animals Asia that has Dr. Paws and Professor Paws and Dr. Dog. Yeah.
I actually love that program, and it's also in Taiwan.
Yes, I think she mentioned that.
I think it's in Hong Kong. I don't know if it's in mainland China.
Yes, it is. It started in Hong Kong, you're absolutely right, but it progressed and now it's in mainland China. And basically, Dr. Dog, it's a dog that goes and visits hospitals. And, they can learn how good it feels. It really brightens their day and makes them feel better. It's like a therapy dog. And then they have Professor Paws, which visits school with young children. And they often have the dog there when they're reading to the children, and the children can pet them and, understand that dogs are nothing to be afraid of. And it's actually a friend. Yeah.
I'm very familiar with the program because it exists in Taiwan. And in fact, one of my dogs, I have two dogs. They are from Taiwan. I rescued them. And I took my dogs to the training for Dr. Dog.
Oh.
And one of them, she was really good for that. So I am very familiar with that. Wuhan, however, has a challenge that no other city in China has. And it's COVID-19 started there. And a lot of the physicians still believe the animals could cause you to become sick. So we have a long road ahead. And I know a lot of people and even a lot of animal rescuers telling me, stop feeling like you are unique, guys. You and Wuhan are not unique. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we are unique because we have, even for flight volunteers, we have the label of, oh, your dog is coming from Wuhan. Is that dog going to make me sick?
Oh my God, really?
So, I mean, and the fact that many people there still believe the dogs and cats can transmit the disease, and even some physicians keep spreading,
Wow. So if a doctor, which is a trusted person in anyone's life, I mean, you would take his word on authority, and he's spreading these ill-advised rumors.
Not a lot. I will say it's the minority, but even if you have a few, it can have a big impact. So it will take some time for, things to come back to the normal that we knew before COVID-19.
But I guess so. Your thoughts are that. I mean, how did you react to some of the COVID-19 that's devastating, obviously, but some good news came out of it. And for us, we really embrace, in April, China's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs drew up new guidelines to reclassify dogs as pets rather than livestock. A lot of people were saying they were never on the livestock list. But, the fact that it's the national government stating this, it means something, right?
It was a project, from my understanding, and the project never really, finished. So I think it really doesn't mean anything. As far as I know, from the good news that I have heard, is Shenzhen, which is kind of close to Guangzhou, is a city that prohibits dog meat.
Yes, well, that was the other part of the good news, is that on May 1st, Shenzhen, actually, they came out in April to announce that as of May 1st, they were going to ban the dog cat meat trade, and not just the trade, like selling of dog and the cat, but the consumption. And that's important, because if not, people can just, kill stray dogs and eat them. As long as they're not selling it, they would not be in breach. But it's also the wildlife trade. They put a ban on that. And also the city of Zhuhai quickly followed. So those cities, it was enacted at May 1st. And then in September, the city of Leishi also placed a comprehensive ban on dogs and consumption of meat. So that is kind of good news. I mean, it has to be good news, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. Those are good news. I think definitely some things going in the right direction, but I think there's this project about dogs and cats not being livestock anymore is exactly that, a project.
And it's missing some parts. It's not completed.
No, it was a project, and I think it stayed there and just never moved forward. And part of what I would love to see is that those cities that are taking those steps in the right direction really, it's not only on paper.
Yeah, that they have to enforce it. Enforcement is key, because if not, it's meaningless. It's not going to change it.
In our countries, I know in my own country, we have a lot of laws and regulations,
and they're not respected. That's it. Yeah. Well, I mean, some of my guests, their thoughts were, it's great, it's great that the national government made that statement, even though it's not a law, because it encourages, one of my guests is actually Chinese, but American Chinese, if you will, and she said that we will never see a national ban on dog cat meat, but she says, I believe it'll be city by city, province by province. They might follow the lead of Shenzhen and enact similar bans, but often in very big cities. So the rural parts of China, it's likely to continue, because for a lot of them, as I understand it, it's like poor areas, and it's a way of living. It's a way of earning a living, and for them, it's just a means to an end. So for them, it's to earn money. They're not in it for any other reason. I mean, the traders, they just want to make money. And can you corroborate the fact that, I mean, in China, I think it's widely known, but it's mostly stolen pets and strays?
I don't know if it's the most. There are stolen pets, but there are also a lot of pet owners who sell their own pets.
Yes, that's another extremely.
Why they do that? Because they got bored of the pet, because the pet is sick and they don't want to pay for the vet bill, and they just don't want the pet anymore, so they want some money back. A lot of stray dogs, yes. In Wuhan, for example, there are traps that these people put, and they trap homeless dogs, and they take them for dog meat. So I think, at least in my experience, that's a little bit of a myth. It's not the majority of the pets who are, it's not the majority of the dogs from the dog meat trade that are pets stolen.
They're sold. They're
Some
sold.
of them,
Yeah.
I think it's probably like a mix. Some of them are sold, some of them are stolen. Because, I mean, and then the other thing is, if you know your pet is in danger, why did you leave the pet to go and walk by himself or herself?
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
But I guess it all boils down to the fact that, as opposed to the West, I mean, certainly I was born and raised in Canada, North America. I don't know about South America. You can speak about that, but we have a longer history of having pet ownership, right? So we grew up seeing dogs. Oh, they're pets. They're not food. Whereas in China, they don't have that history, and it's very recent. Only very recent that you can consider having a pet.
And to be fair, I remember when I visited the terracotta soldiers in Xi'an. There's another smaller, there's the terracotta soldiers. That's the main spot, and then there's a smaller excavation. And I decided to go there, and the local tour guide took me there, and there were a lot of like this little, sculptures with pigs and cows and all animals and dogs. And I asked her, like, oh wow, they had, the pets and the animals they were going to eat. And she told me, no, those dogs were food for them. So we are talking about what, 240 BC, and
Yes.
they are already eating dogs. So it's something that we also have to understand. Change is not, is never easy for people to change.
Yeah.
And they have a long story eating dogs.
Yeah.
So I think little by little change is coming. Like, these cities are taking the steps in the right direction, but it will take a long time, and I think it may take several generations.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right, because I did interview also in South Korea Nami Kim. I'm sure you know her, Save Korean Dogs, and she's been fighting this for her whole life, for a better part of her life, and also her mother was fighting it, and she said it becomes so frustrating because you see change and it's so slow in coming, and you see little bits of victories here and there, but as a whole, she goes, it's going to take a whole generation.
Well, I see it, and I think a good comparison is here in the Western world.
Yeah.
Vegans are fighting. People are fighting to stop eating cows and pigs and chicken. Is change happening? Yes, but so slow.
It's so slow. And vegans, I think we're still 2% of the world. I mean, we're very small, unfortunately. It'll keep growing. And,
So the same is in China for the dogs and the cats. So we have to understand that, it's going to take generations, the same that it's going to take generations probably to go to a plant-based, food. Like we consume only plants. It's the same thing.
Well, I would kick myself for not asking you because Taiwan did enact a ban. I forget the year, but it was it in 2014, I think?
I don't remember the year, but I know when I arrived in Taiwan,
Yeah.
nobody ate dog and cat.
Okay, so it was successful, and since Taiwan used to be part of China, is that not giving you hope that maybe some countries will abandon the practice sooner than others? I suppose.
It's a kind of a little. I don't know. It's a very delicate topic.
Yeah, it is.
But Taiwan is very different. It's very different. It's like the comparison is, first of all, it's smaller.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then it's a democracy.
It's like Hong Kong, eh? So Hong Kong banned dog and cat meat in 1950. I mean, because of the British ruling and obviously the influence. So yeah, I guess it's more comparable to Hong Kong, but not.
Yes, it's a little bit of a complex, topic. Probably just in itself will be a different podcast. But I can say that Taiwan is definitely an example for the rest of the, places in Asia to look at. They still have ways to go. I'm not saying that it's, easy, never easy, but you see more people embracing the Formosa mountain dogs, which is basically their own dog who was persecuted, for many years. It's like the galgos in Spain. Well, Formosa mountain dogs.
Yeah.
Spaniards don't embrace the galgos. The Taiwanese are doing that. It's actually now even cool to have a Formosa mountain dog,
Wow.
So, but a lot of amazing people has been working, shoulders to shoulder with the locals like Mary and Lisa, for example, or other organizations. And, it's a smaller place. It's easier when you have a smaller population as well.
Absolutely. It's more easy to instill change and enact it and enforce it, of course.
Yeah, and it's a more homogeneous. China is huge. I mean, I wish people. Wuhan is a mega city, and if you see it, Wuhan is changing. Parts of Wuhan is very modern, and others is totally old China. So
yeah, it's a contrast, like. And Wuhan, it does. Sometimes I'm surprised. I look up, like, it's very picturesque. Some of these places are beautiful, like the nature in it, and also I'm sure you can agree that China has beautiful culture. I mean, there are beautiful parts of that country, the population, the culture, the rich traditions. I mean, so we have to not be all like too pessimistic and put everything in one basket. I mean, it's
totally. And I hope that people travel to China, explore China. It's a fascinating country. Is absolutely stunning, beautiful.
Yeah.
So much history. It's like having an onion. You peel it and peel it.
Yes, you'll never be done.
And I will put probably a little bit of advertising here. If people travel to China, please contact Furry Angels Wuhan, because we are desperate for flight volunteers. For us, it's crucial. And this is something that, I understand all the rescuers are in the same situation, and sometimes they don't want to share the flight volunteers with others because they have their own problems.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. But if you are looking at this podcast and or you are planning to go from China to the US, Canada.
Please, yes, please. I mean, first of all, we're going to have all the links to your website. You have a website, social media pages. Do reach out, because it's such an easy thing to do for anyone traveling. You have nothing to do, really. You show up at the airport and that's it. You say, this is your dog. But at this point...
Not even that. because we have this policy in Furry Angels Haven. Our flight volunteers never have to lie. We always will declare the dogs as they are.
Oh, yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. I didn't mean it that way, but yes, like your involvement is very little, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. For example, when they come to the US, we do the APHIS paperwork. They know the animal is a rescue.
Yeah.
Going to a registered nonprofit organization. Same in Europe. Same for Canada. So we do everything by the book.
And flight volunteers, if I'm not mistaken, it cuts the flight cost in half. Like sometimes it could dramatically decrease the cost of flying a dog out of China, right?
Oh, I mean, let me put you an example.
Okay.
If we want to bring a dog from China to the US by cargo,
Yeah.
First of all, right now the agents are not allowing. I mean, it's really hard for you to say, "Hey, I have only one dog that I need to send." So you have to wait until there's a pallet.
Yes.
The pallet costs $42,000. $42,000.
And what does the pallet represent? Like how many dogs?
Depends. If the dogs are big, it's usually about 10. Let's say you have golden retrievers, probably about 10 golden retrievers. If you have smaller dogs, maybe you can fit between 20 to 30 dogs.
Oh my Lord, 42,000.
Yes. So the average price to bring a dog by cargo from China to the US, let's say New York City,
Yeah.
for a golden retriever is about $3,000 US. Maybe if you can negotiate the price, it could be 2,500. For a small dog like a Chihuahua, we are talking about 1,500.
And cargo flights were necessary because of COVID, right? Like they no longer accept dogs or animals with passenger flights, or
No, that's not the problem. The problem right now is that people is not, a lot of people are not traveling.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that, because I was like, why is it like now cargo the only option? But yes, you're right. No one's traveling.
And some airlines have now restrictions because maybe they are using a smaller airplanes, so they cannot take that many dogs as extra baggage.
Right.
But if you add that to the fact that going in China is difficult, and
Yes.
and people who are in China, they don't want to leave because they may not be able to go back. So traveling is challenging right now, and I hope 2021 will be nicer to us.
Yes. Can you say something about China reopened way before most countries, and is it more like business as usual at this point? We're February 5th, 2021. Is like Fita, for example, she's able to travel. There's no lockdown restrictions at this point, right?
Well, it varies, and I don't feel comfortable saying too much because I'm not in China anymore.
Yeah.
I know from some of my friends from other rescue organizations are being apparently locked down right now.
Oh, okay. So it depends on the part of China.
I know. I mean, I have to give kudos to China because they have controlled COVID-19 pretty good.
Yeah.
Wuhan, I understand the situation is pretty much under control, but traveling internally, they have like QR codes that people have to show to prove where they have been, so they can track to see if that person has been in
There's some restrictions, of course, still in place. Yeah.
And in traveling is really complicated right now.
Absolutely.
Not only in China, I think in the entire world.
Everywhere, yeah. But I want viewers to understand, like, for you, Furry Angels Haven, the biggest challenges at this point is the cost. I mean, the cost is huge. And can you speak like your monthly overhead for the shelter? I mean, it's astronomical, right?
It's pretty big. I know that, the vet bills, it varies depending on the cases that we have, but it can vary anything from 2,000 to 4,000 US dollars per month, only on vet bills.
Wow.
The
Only on vet bills.
Yes, the food is also pretty high. About I understand from what people told me, maybe about 5,000 US dollars per month. And then we have, a person working full time to take care of the animals. So his salary is 500 US dollars per month.
Wow, not the biggest part, but I mean, it's the electricity, like you were saying, it's everything.
Electricity is another thing. For example, for winter, we couldn't afford to have heating, all days running non-stop.
No.
We have to choose, okay, the days that are really cold, the dogs are going to have, heating, and then we have blankets, and we made sure
You make do, yeah.
exactly. Then the water we have to pay, and the other thing is that we have to pay for the land. We rent the land. We don't own the dog from SPCA International. There's a video that Fita kind of makes a tour of our shelter.
Oh,
So
I love that
our
video.
shelter yes, it's in the mountains. Actually, I think as well, Pine Magazine, they did a video. They visit the shelter, and there's a video of our shelter. I can send you the link, and you will see. It's in a beautiful mountain. It's very big.
Wow.
I will even say it's the best shelter in Wuhan, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, I guess that grant helped you. I don't know what the amount of the grant was, but it certainly helped you build a proper shelter. And I would love to have that video because I would incorporate it in the podcast and show viewers, give viewers at home a better idea of what we're talking about, And right now, how many dogs do you, and cats, because it's not just dogs, eh? You rescue cats, and how many in the shelter alone? Because I know Fita has a lot of dogs at her apartment too.
Yes, I think in the shelter right now the number has decreased a little.
Okay.
Because we were able to send some of the dogs overseas.
Oh, thank God.
We probably have about 200 in the shelter, and she has about 50 at her home. Cats, I think we have about 100 cats.
And would you say that you can do successful adoptions within China?
We did that before. Fita also did that before, and the experience she had, some of the dogs she never recovered. She didn't know what happened to the dogs that she gave into adoption. She was trying, but I mean, and she actually told me, and this is when I listened to the locals. She told me, listen to me. Right now in Wuhan, it's really difficult to find good families to adopt animals.
Yeah.
So I think it's better to send them overseas. And I listen to her because she knows better than me.
Yes, absolutely. And Wuhan, especially given what you've told us about that city, and it's pretty rampant, the dog meat and the mentalities around dogs and cats. But would you feel comfortable in other parts of China? Like, is that a possibility, or just in general?
It's kind of difficult because I know in the US or Canada or Europe, something goes wrong with the adoption, we have rescue partners that are backing us, and they will take the dog back.
That's it.
But who do we have in other cities in China?
That's a problem.
And I can tell you, so far, knock on wood, but all our adoptions have been successful. But if something goes wrong, we have our partner rescuers, rescue partners who are backing that case, and they will take the animal back.
It's very important. And do you have it in your adoption contract that if ever the person cannot take care of the dog, that they have to return it to either the partner shelter? Or?
Basically how it works, and now it's changing a little bit, but once we send one of our dogs, let's say that we send to the dog boss in the UK,
Yeah.
once our dog is in Christine's hand, she is the
It's
one doing
yeah, she decides. Okay.
she
Yeah.
does the contract, she does the home visits, she does everything on the ground. So it will be very unfair to me to give her a contract and say, hey,
No,
Christine,
no, that's it. It
yeah,
would make no sense, and that's why it's so important to find the right people to partner with.
exactly.
Yeah,
And now that I'm in the US, yes, I have some rescue partners in the US. And like, for example, why not save Assam? I don't know if you have heard about
yes,
it.
I heard about that. Yvette,
Yeah.
I believe.
Tibet is
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh
Um,
yeah, another guess
yeah,
possibility.
absolutely. And and when she takes a dog, she takes the animal, it's in her hands, so I get out of the picture. Now that I'm in the US, I would probably start doing direct adoptions myself. Then I
Yeah,
can do the contract, I can do everything,
yourself. Yeah.
exactly. And probably I will limit myself to certain areas because, how can I know if a family in Washington State is good when I'm in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And and since I'm Canadian, I'm a little curious. Are you able to say who your partners are in Canada?
Oh yeah, yeah. Let me. I have very bad memory. One of our new rescue partners is in Ottawa. She
Oh,
amazing. Pause with a cause, Ottawa.
pause with a cause. Yeah, I heard that. Is it something that they have a little bit everywhere, like in the States, or is it really specific to Ottawa?
I know. She helps as well. An organization in Colombia.
Ah, okay.
They're fairly new. Marie is amazing, very supportive. We speak pretty much almost like I will say twice a month at least.
Wow.
The other one is Embrace a Discarded Society in Vancouver.
What is it called?
Embrace a Discarded Society, I think is the name of the organization. Leslie is her name.
Okay.
I can send you her contact. And then another great organization in Vancouver, Loved at Last.
Love at last. I love that name.
Yeah.
It says it all, you know?
Yeah. So
And
yeah. And we have others, like a lady, her name is Emma. I don't remember exactly the name of the organization, but I can send it to you. I have the memory of a chicken. Sorry about that.
you
But
have quite the roster, I'm sure. I would love to dig in
yeah,
that.
we have quite a few, rescue partners, and we decided just to keep it. I at some point I was planning to expand our network, but we have some bad experiences lately, and decided just to keep working with.
With the ones that you know,
Yeah,
exactly.
that we have been working with them since 2019. So I mean,
All right. And so I'm going to ask you a final question because I know we are actually getting really close to that time. And I do appreciate your time so much. So I will ask you for us everyday people and especially foreigners, what would you say are the things that we can do to help this cause that's overseas in China and South Korea? I mean, we can talk about all of it. You say petitions are not very effective, and I have to agree with you. I mean, we haven't seen signs that they are effective. So what would you say we can do? I mean, the one thing I always say to people is like, if you support a cause, put your money where your mouth is, you know, like don't just say oh, I'll give you a thumbs up or a little emoji on Facebook. You have to go a little bit further and support their actions because you are dependent on and totally reliable on donations. You know, without donations, you can't do the work. And you
yeah.
can't do the work, so we have to support you. So donations is a big part of it, of what we can do. But would you say other things, fostering? Or...
I mean, there's a lot of things I think, and I understand during these difficult times, donations is something that maybe not everybody can afford, even a $5 per month, because to me, I rather prefer to know that every month we have this amount of people donating.
Yeah, then that's sporadic, $100 here that you didn't expect. Yeah, man.
Exactly. So, but if you are in a situation that you cannot even spare $5, then you can always share in social media.
Yeah.
Some post and that costs nothing.
Yeah.
The other thing is you have a talent. We have several designers and artists who have donated their talent, so we can sell what they donated. Like, for example, Bonfire. We have some teachers with designs who have been donated to us.
Wow.
So we can turn that into merchandise that we can sell, and then we have some funds. And the other thing that is super important and also costs nothing: don't post any hate messages towards China or Chinese people, because that's totally wrong.
It backfires. If anything, it's the opposite of help.
If we are preaching compassion and kindness, how can we hate? That. And I will also, make one comment that is something that everybody can do to help. Maybe you like this organization and that other organization, but other people are talking badly about why,
Yes, the rumors, the smear campaigns that happen.
do your due diligence. If you have doubts of how that organization is using money, don't donate to them. But I think even, I really dislike when rescuers start throwing mud to each other and sometimes even fall into defamation. And we cannot afford to fight among us. And this is something that, and this is maybe me venting right now, but I'm surprised sometimes that people who you would expect to be very kind because we love animals, sometimes dealing with other rescuers, the amount of like hate words exchange is appealing. So that is something. Even if your preferred organization gets into a public fight with another one, don't be a cyber bully.
No, that's so immature. It's so counterproductive. I mean, it actually hurts the cause.
It hurts the cause.
Yeah.
So let's spend the energy that we have in something positive. So, sharing posts, donating your talents, giving ideas, positive, constructive feedback, and always, always be kind to everybody, even when you're upset.
I love that, and it's so well said and so true, because I have a personal problem with those kind of rants, and I actually had to block many people because it's toxic. It's toxic, and it does nothing, no good for the animals, because once it's brought upon the mainstream that there's a doubt placed on a certain organization, a certain person in that organization, the funding stops and the animals suffer. And if you do not have absolute proof that someone has done something wrong, then you should just stay out of it. Stay out of it.
In case of doubt, don't donate to that organization.
Like, no one's forcing you.
Exactly. Look for somebody else that you feel comfortable with.
Exactly. It's so simple, so easy, so rational. If everyone could be like you, Xenia. I thank you so much, and I won't even ask you the guest suggestion because I've had multiple throughout the podcast, so that's wonderful. And I encourage viewers at home, please do check them out. They have a website. We're going to post all the links in the description box below, and please support them, because they need, without our donations, they cannot do this work, and we cannot do the work, so we should encourage them. And you're wonderful. You and Fita, maybe we'll get her on the podcast eventually, but because it would be great to hear her point of view. But you do our wonderful work. You're so genuine, so compassionate, that we need to support that. So
thank you so much, Jade, and I really appreciate your time and all your support and everything that you are doing for the animals. That's another example of how people can help. something amazing.
Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best, and I'll definitely let you know when this podcast will be released.
Thank you so much, Jade.
Take care.